It's not every day that I get to read something that's like good news. I'm happy to hear something like this. Now, as you may know, a lot of y'all know, I quit paying my mortgage to Bank of America around about 2010 because I started doing research on my mortgage, the note, the chain of title, etc., and started to find out that there's some major problems. It's registered with MERS, so it was never never recorded with the clerk's office locally here in the county properly, etc. They kind of bypassed that and they used MERS, electronic mortgage registration system, or whatever. So I started looking into it, met a guy by researching myself about foreclosures and the banks and this and that, and I find out, the too big to fail, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citi, the too big to fail banks keep coming up, and forged documents and improper chain of title. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I find a court case locally here. Guy lives obviously locally, and I'm reading his documents. I can figure out relatively quickly that he is fighting his own foreclosure pro se, which means I'm not hiring a lawyer. I'm going to fight this myself. So I'm looking through all his documentation. I can tell he's definitely done his homework. And I finally see something where it's got his phone number. So I'm like, should I call this guy? I'm like, there's probably not a lot of people like finding him this way and calling him to ask questions. But there's no way. I'll just call if he doesn't want to talk. I'll hang up and that's it. So I just quickly explain. I found your documentation online, and your foreclosure documents via the lawsuit, and I'm thinking about doing the same thing myself. I just was curious if maybe you can help me determine if I should, or So he started telling me the whole story. Sure enough, he has Wells Fargo. And same story I just told you is pretty much identical with him. And so we start chatting for a little bit. He says, yeah, I at one point I had a tile company, for your house, tiling company, and I had a separate office, and things were good until the big crash happened. Both my companies went under, lost my job, etc. And I decided I wasn't going to. He said, I knew who did this. The reckless lending they give to everybody, no background check, no proof of employment, no proof of money, of how much you make. He's like, this is obvious what happened, and here they are, they get this huge bailout, and they're the ones that caused the problem. He said, I wasn't going to take it lying down. And I was like, well, that sounds like kind of where I'm feeling right now. So he says, he's like, you're not the only one that contacted me. And I'm like, oh, I guess, I'm thinking, oh crap, I guess a bunch of people do call him. He says, a lawyer contacted me and asked if I'd like to work for him. I could run documents down to the courthouse and things like that. And he specializes in foreclosures just for this area, Tampa Bay and surrounding areas. And he's like, so I work for him now, and this is what we specialize in. He said, if you are looking for someone to represent you, this is the perfect place. Because you obviously know what I've done for myself, and now I'm working for him. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I asked him how far along he was with his. I think he quit paying in 2008. And as of last year, when I last reached out to him, because they are working on my case too, by the way, just to kind of touch base with him, they haven't gone any further with his case. So he's been in his house, no mortgage, because Wells Fargo cannot produce the documents that they were requesting. And then basically put as my kids like to say, it's paused, Daddy. They paused the case, and it's sitting in Wells Fargo's lap. Ball's in your court, and it's been sitting there. So I asked him about mine, and I'm like, because I thought December of 2013, you had anticipated that mine might go to trial. And he says, yeah, and you know how the courts are. They love to side with the banks, regardless of what they show or forge or anything else. He says, but if they do that, you just file an appeal and start the process all over again. We just keep playing that game. So I'm like, all right. He's like, however, last November, so not even 2013, but the November before that, which would be 2012, he said we sent a second notice for documentation that we were requesting. This is all part of the process, he says, before it goes to trial. You're allowed to request things from them. They're allowed to request things from you, right? Everyone gets all the stuff. Everyone's satisfied. Okay, let's set a date for trial. And he says, we're waiting on these documents that we requested. No response the first time, so we filed another request in writing, of course, as they always are. Mailed off certified letter. Second request, November 2012. No answer was given to the first one. We are respectfully requesting a second time for the following documents, blah, blah, blah. Still haven't received an answer, a document, and received anything. So he says, we don't want to rush them, obviously. We're not going to try to move the case forward. The ball's in their court now, kind of similar to what is in his case. He says, so let them take as long as they want. If they want to sit on this for years, man, hey, enjoy your house. No payments. I said, yeah, I understand. For me, it wasn't about no payments. Can I find a way to rig the system? No, J-Step 4 wasn't brought up like that. But once I find out there's been some major wrongdoing, and you can point a finger at who did it, and then that same entity that did it doesn't get in trouble for it, continues to do it, pays billions of dollars with the other banks, totaling $25 billion, mandated by the attorneys general of all the states. This big settlement, and they promised during that settlement, you're paying this hefty fine, and you are agreeing that you will not robo-sign and produce these fake documents and fake signatures any longer. Yes, we agree. And I was the first one to say, watch how they continue doing it. And I said, I made a video on this. I said, do you want to know why they'll continue doing it? Because they don't have the legal proper documentation. The chain of title has been broken, and once it is broken, it is irreparable. You can't go back and force signature. It's done. Breaking the chain of title, it's finished. I said they can't get the documents. They have no choice but to continue robo-signing, altering documents, forging documents in order to appease the courts to say, yeah, look, we do have a right to foreclose on this. Your Honor, we have Exhibit A, B, and C, all original, signed. Yeah, signed by the guy standing back there a little while ago when we, in court, showed that you sent a blank document with no signature. Then all of a sudden you issue a second document with a signature out of nowhere. Okay. Things like that. So if they don't have the documentation and had to fake all this whole time in order to foreclose on people, what makes anyone so sure that paying a $25 billion fine for all the banks included, all the too big to fails, had to come up with $25 billion total? What makes you think all of a sudden they're going to just magically pull out signatures and chain of title and piece it back together when they couldn't do that before? I said they wouldn't because they can't. And you guessed it, they're continuing to do this. But I want to read this to you. I had to give you a little background where I'm at. So yeah, we're in 2015, right? I'm in limbo on my whole situation with the bank in court. And if I keep telling myself, if I was wrong, if I was really trying to tweak the system for my benefit, find a way to just whatever. Why in the hell did they not give the simple documents that we asked for? Documents that any lender would have immediately available on a freaking mortgage, the most expensive thing a human being will buy in their lifetime. You don't have the proper documentation? You can't just come up with that immediately? You do realize you're paying the property tax, you're paying the insurance, and you're not getting the mortgage. You're basically paying yourself the mortgage. That's essentially what's happening. You'd probably want to come up with that pretty quick. Get rid of those fees you're incurring on yourself, right? But they realize the average person, USA, football, entertainment, Super Bowl, Katy Perry, yeah. Oh, I got a foreclosure notice. I'm leaving. Oh, let's walk away. I won't respond in 20 days via law, like law says. And once you do that, you can never go back. You don't respond to that foreclosure, which is basically a lawsuit. You are they win summary judgment. You failed to reply. Therefore, whatever they said against you must be true. Case closed. That's how that works. So many people walked because, and I don't mean walk like I'm walking away from. I got foreclosed. I'm leaving. You should have stood and fought. But they rely on 9 out of 10 or God knows how many, 99 out of 100, I don't know, people don't have a clue, don't know any better, dumbed down by the whole system. You were never intended on being informed about these matters, so just take it like a man and leave. And you gave up. You could have had a 30-year mortgage, 25 years into it. 2008 happens. Bankers did this. Bankers didn't get in trouble. Bankers got bailout money. It's the robber who robbed the bank getting more money for robbing the bank and then not getting charged with robbing the bank. So they robbed the bank, got money for that, didn't get in trouble for robbing the bank, and then thirdly got a massive amount of money for robbing the bank. That's what happened. And everyone else just stands here and takes it lying down. What can I do? I just told you what I did. And if I'm wrong, where's the documentation that my lawyer requested twice in writing, sent certified mail, as all communications have to be done, certified mail, in a case like this? Matter of fact, any court case. So that lets me know, Joe, you know what the hell you're talking about. You know what they did, and they know you know what they did. So I want to read, the whole point of this video, which I haven't even started, is to read you something interesting, which is extremely rare for a judge to slam one of the banks. New York judge slams Wells Fargo for forging documents and why nothing will change, it says. Okay, so problem number one, a judge is slamming one of the too big to fails. Who does he think he is? Number two, slams them for Wells Fargo for forging documents? Wait a minute, I thought few years, 2012, they had to, or was it 2010? 2012? 2012, I think. It says it in here somewhere. $25 billion settlement. Attorneys General, all 50 states. You guys promise not to do these things anymore? We're all good. America, we stood for you. Okay, where'd the $50 billion go? I guess to the government. Didn't really go to us. I mean, where did it go for me? They said the banks, you're going to have to work with people who are behind on their mortgages. You're agreeing to that. And, whatever they owe, put it on the back and just kind of work with them. And, okay. Once again, why put it on the back? Why do any of that when you don't have to do anything and make the bank prove in court that they have the legal avenue to even file a lawsuit, foreclosure against you in the first place? So, bankruptcy judge Robert Drain of the New York Southern District has long been one of the more fascinating litigators at One Bowling Green. However, until today, we thought that his often outspoken style is reserved for his career caseload, which includes among it Delphi, Hostess, and RCN. Little did we know that Judge Drain is also an activist on par with the infamous Jed Rakoff, author of infamous rhetorical essay, Why Have No High-Level Executives Been Prosecuted in Connecticut with a Financial Crisis?, which over 1 year later still has no answer. Today, thanks to Zero Hedge contributor for foreclosurefraud.org, the number 4, closure, who over the weekend noticed a critical filing in the case of Cynthia Carso Franklin versus Wells Fargo, we find something stunning. In his 30-page decision, the judge, attached below, he accuses Wells Fargo of forging and explicitly using the word forged, not once, not twice, but a whopping 22 times, in his opinion. By way of background, the case involves a debtor, New York speech pathologist for autistic children, Cynthia Carso Franklin, whose Westchester County house Wells Fargo is trying to prove it has a right to foreclose on. The proceedings had been going on since 2010, and it took 5 years of endless Wells Fargo lies for the presiding judge to finally snap and, as the Post reported, quote, shred Wells Fargo's arguments regarding two crucial documents needed to prove ownership of a loan. An endorsement, also known as an endorsement, on a note and an assignment of mortgage. It goes without saying that a whole lot of robo-signing and rubber stamping are involved. What followed was an epic litany of incendiary allegations that Wells Fargo, which for its sake is not being prosecuted, is nothing but a petty criminal engaging in forgery and fabrication. Some examples. The debtor contended that the bank endorsement that appeared for the first time on the form of note attached to claim number 1-2 was as improper as the purported July 12, 2010 assignment of mortgage to Wells Fargo executed on behalf of the assignor/nominee by an employee of Wells Fargo. As alleged by the claim objection, the bank endorsement was forged in response to problems with the documentation of Wells Fargo's right to enforce the note. Just as the debtor contended, the July 12, 2010 assignment of mortgage was manufactured 3 days before claim number 1-1 was filed in order to falsely lead the debtor and the court to think that Wells Fargo had an independent right to enforce a mortgage on the property. And there's some more. I don't need to keep going on that particular one. Just to let you know, we don't have documentation? Print it up, sign it, send it to the court, and swear. And, you're basically taking an oath, so to speak, when you go to court that what is coming out of my mouth is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, Your Honor. So help me God. You don't have that document? Print it up. You need that one signed? I'll sign it, rubber stamp it. Bingo. Now send it to the court. We don't have that? Here, print it up. Boom, send it to the court. What do you mean print it up? What do you mean sign it? This is stuff that should have been signed years ago. You should have on file, not someone forging someone else's signature all of a sudden now because you need it in court. Just make it up. Just give it. Hurry up. Bzz. The fabrication process in detail. He says, in describing the work of his assignment team, Mr. Kennedy stated, quote, if there was not an assignment in there, in the paperwork, that is, in Wells Fargo's loan file, then they would advise the attorney that we did not have it. This is wording from the actual guy from Wells Fargo. They would advise the attorney that we did not have it, that they would need to draft the appropriate assignment. If the assignment needed to be created, they would have advised the attorney, the requesting attorney, that we did not have the assignment in the collateral file, then they needed to draw up the appropriate document. How does one draw up an appropriate document out of thin air when it's needed? Said document being something that has to be signed by certain parties. You get a robo-signer to fabricate a signature, fabricate the paperwork, do what you have. That's what he is saying. Then they needed to draw up the appropriate document. And before that, didn't have the assignment, then the appropriate assignment needed to be drawn up. Make one up. That's what they're saying. And some more from Mr. Kennedy's own testimony. Question. In the actual procedure for endorsing an original note, if you could just walk me through that process, what would the processor do? Answer. You know he has to start like this. Answer. To the best of my recollection, the request would come in. Again, we would check to see if we had the collateral file. If we had it, and depending on the status of the loan itself, if we had the note, then we could check to see, what was actually on the note to see what needed to be done. If we did not have the collateral file, then that processor would work with the collateral file ordering team. Now listen to that phrase. Collateral file ordering team. You mean like you could place an order for any documents you need? Yes. That's what was happening years ago that they promised we'd stop doing that practice. So, where was I? That processor would work with the collateral file ordering team to reach out with the appropriate attorney the appropriate custodian to obtain the collateral file. And then they would look to, once the file came in, they would look to ensure that the original note was in there and check to see if there was any endorsement on the back of the note. Question. Okay. And if there wasn't, how would the processor go about endorsing the note? Answer. I don't recall specifically how they completed that particular task. Oh, I do. RoboSign and stamp. Dink, dink. Okay. Question. Was it a rubber stamp? Was it somebody signing? How was it? Answer. To the best of my recollection, a stamp was involved, but then it had to be signed. Question. Okay. And if an endorsement was coming from an entity that no longer existed, right? You need a signature right now, badly, to go forward in court. And that entity you needed the signature from is gone, bankrupt, insolvent, whatever, they're gone. That's what he's saying. How would it be signed? How could you get that signature? Answer. I don't recall. So Zerohead says, so now that Wells Fargo has been exposed in court for its data forgery, what happens next? Several things. According to the Post, Wells Fargo has about 2 weeks to file a notice of appeal. The megabank lost this round, but the judge also made it clear that Franklin's debt remains. So the debt remains. Who you owe it to, we have no idea. And it certainly isn't Wells Fargo because they don't have any of the proper documentation and are forging it just to bring this case forward. So once again, who is it owed to? That's all we want to know. Who is this debt owed to? Because every time you get that letter in the mail, what does it say? Little invoice or whatever. We are so, let's see, does mine say it? I just got a little notice, automated notice in the mail that keeps coming. Delinquency notice. Your loan is in the foreclosure process. Are you sure? Are you sure? It's been since 2010. I'm quite sure I knew that. As of January 16th, you are 1,690 days delinquent on your mortgage loan. I'm trying to see where it says, we are the servicer of your note. Not the owner, not the note holder, not the mortgage owner, but the servicer. But this is all the typical monthly print. I get these every month. I used to get the ones prior to these that would say, we are, Bank of America, NA, whatever, servicer of your mortgage note to note holder. And I called them one day. So look, I'm reading this, and it says here, you are the servicer of this note to note holder. And I was expecting it to say, we are the servicer of the note to note holder XYZ company or fund or something. Why does it say note holder? It's just kind of a broad thing we use because we can't really reveal who it is. That information would have to be revealed in court. So if you want to know who the note holder actually is, you have to file a lawsuit against us. So to find out who is getting my money for this mortgage, because you're the servicer, you're servicing the loan, I have to sue you guys to find out who that entity is. Yes, that's correct. I said to her, I got a better idea. You're going to have to sue me so we can figure out who really owns this house. And I'm not going to make that process happen faster than, by me taking you to court. So I'll just stop making my payments. and we'll see where this goes. And they would call, sir, they try to get me to pay and call. And I said, all right, let me explain where I'm at on this. I've done the research. I've done my own chain of title research on my house. I've done all the research I could on my mortgage documents. And I've found that Bank of America does not have the proper documentation. There is a major break in the chain of title, and that alone is enough to cause major problems down the road when I would technically pay this house off and ask for the proper note, to come to me as paid off. Legally speaking, you wouldn't have the authority to actually issue it based off of this break in the chain of title, even though you would still issue it. And that's where the problem lies. So I've got a better idea. I'm not paying this until we find out who owns this. And you're going to have to take me to court. Are you taking all these notes? Yes, sir, I am. Okay. I never, ever, ever received another phone call from that day forward. When I put down in the notes everything that I had uncovered, I caught you red-handed. Big banks, Bank of America in this case. Oh. This fella knows what he's talking about. No need to call him anymore. I didn't have to write a letter, stop calling me, no debt collect. When I gave him that speech, it ended. They've never called me back. And then way later on, finally, got the foreclosure notice. Okay, talk to my attorney guy, friend, whatever. Hey, I just got in the mail. Here it is. I'll send it to you. And that was that. So, and that happened in the very end of 2000. Was it 12? Or was that 11? I think the process started, because I told you earlier, it was November of 2012. They were waiting for some documentation. I take that back. I think it was 2013, November of 2013, that they said we asked a second time, because it was December of 2012 when I first got that, foreclosure notice, whatever. And then the next month we were moving to Tennessee in January. So that whole year went by, and they've been waiting since November of 2013. Here we are now, 2015. So here's the judge, though. Let's wrap this up. January 26th, Judge R. Brent Elliott of Missouri. This is some other stuff, right? So he says, to be sure, Wells Fargo will redouble its efforts to avoid an adverse case decision, because they've lost this one, as this is already the second legal loss for the California bank in just 1 week. Judge Drain's ruling followed another major loss for Wells Fargo in a residential foreclosure case last week, and another smackdown, this time from a Missouri state court judge. This in turn comes after Wells Fargo and 3 other big banks were hit with a $2.7 million penalty to settle allegations of unlawful foreclosures in Massachusetts. If I'm wrong, how could this happen? How could there be people winning? Not in your life. Even in this corrupt judicial system, they're winning. Oh my God. On January 26, Judge R. Brent Elliott of Missouri's 43rd Judicial Circuit awarded $2.9 million in punitive damages to a Missouri couple who spent years in limbo after Wells Fargo wrongfully foreclosed on their home. Wells sold it to Freddie Mac on August 15, 2008, even after agreeing to a reinstatement of the loan following a disputed debt. Elliott also blasted Wells Fargo for, quote, outrageous and reprehensible decisions and deceptive and intentional conduct that displayed a complete and total disregard for the rights of David and Crystal Home. Go judge. Defendant Wells Fargo operated from a position of superiority provided by its enormous wealth, he wrote. Judge Brent wrote. In a blistering 9-page decision, quote, Wells Fargo's decision took advantage of an obviously financially vulnerable family, the judge continued, noting that Wells Fargo showed no evidence of remorse for the harm caused. In fact, the court recalls the lack of remorse and humanity illustrated by a Wells Fargo corporate representative who testified, quote, I'm not here as a human being. I'm here as a representative of Wells Fargo, the judge wrote. That's what this man said in court from Wells Fargo. I am not here as a human being. I'm here as a representative of Wells Fargo. Wow. Are you some kind of corporate robot? The corporate elite? The couple and their 12-year-old daughter got their home back, along with a total of $3.25 million in damages. That's one family. And if another family does the same thing, and old Jason up before does the same thing, and this lawyer guy does the same thing, and all these banks start having to pay these fees and fines, ooh, they're going to get to the point where they do this. They say, guys, continue with the foreclosure process, continue with the robo-stamping, robo-signing, fake signatures, fake documents, print them up, sign them. In other words, keep doing what we've been doing for the last several years, business as usual. But if anybody objects to our foreclosure process and they stop it in court and we start to have a court case, don't respond and just let it sit in limbo. We don't want to drop the case, because if we drop the case, then we don't want the sheeple hearing about the banks are now dropping cases, so now you get your house free and clear. We don't want that to happen. So we'll just keep the cases in limbo forever, so that no one can say that they won. No, the people aren't winning, but we aren't winning either. But at least no one hears about anything. It just stays there. It doesn't go anywhere in court. And since the ball's in our court as Bank of America or Wells Fargo or whoever, we dictate when the next part of the trial or the court process proceedings happen. That would be better than going to court and finding out, oh no, we lost again. Oh, let's try again. Oh my God, we lost again. And then each time one of those people wins against the big banks. Guys like me, you, Zero Hedge, whoever, are going to report on it. And it's going to reach thousands and thousands of other people. And those people are going to remember that. And next thing you know, you've got what they call the 100th monkey syndrome. Which I heard, I think it was way back when they were doing some kind of bomb testing, atomic bomb testing, out of some, Pacific island somewhere. Only thing that was there were these monkeys. And after we did all these tests and stuff, well, some radioactivity was on this island. It wasn't real bad, but somehow it would stick to the coconuts. So they had humans teaching the monkeys, one at a time, how to wash it off in this little stream with water first, then crack it open and eat it. If they did that, it would wipe off any, even though it was a little harmful, whatever, radiation, it would get it off the outside of the coconut. Everything would be fine. The monkeys would be okay. And they found out that once they got to the 100th monkey, out of, 10,000 monkeys or whatever was on this island, the 100th monkey, by the time it got to that one, that's when the rest of them would teach the other ones, and the humans could just step back. And all of a sudden, monkeys teaching other monkeys, out of control. They didn't have to do anything else, and now the rest is history. So this is one of those 100 monkey syndromes. So chances are, of course, Wells Fargo will probably file an appeal, try to get it to a federal judge, one of our boys, and find us in favor of the win, and teach this scumbag person not to mess with the banks. Well, I don't know, because some people just made some money here on this one. It's incredible. So this is good news in that respect, but you have to understand and know what's happening for this to even matter. The average person's not sitting here reading this. The average person right now is talking about either how happy or how pissed off they are about how the Super Bowl went. Happy if your team won, pissed off if your team lost. Let's go riot. Oh my God. Boston riots. I don't get it. So much important stuff is out there amongst the crap. And here I am, feel like I'm, the lone gunman, so to speak, lone gunman of information, trying to, inform people of stuff like this. I didn't have to tell anybody. I used to keep up with how my court case was progressing, and I told everyone I'll do YouTube videos whenever I get a new answer from my lawyer. Basically, I'm going to read you what they responded and all that stuff, so you can kind of keep your own log in case you ever come across something like this and you need to use my answers, because they're all the same basically, in your own court case. And I did 1 or 2 video updates. And then that was it. Oh, the case is stopped. Falls in their court. We're waiting. That's it. Really? That's all? I've got like 2 things to talk about? Didn't go to trial. Didn't go to the next step. Discovery process. All that. Interrogatories. All that. Nope. Nah. Can't get there yet. So, of course, I have no update. But anytime one of these big banks gets it stuck to them, feels so good. Give me a little goosebumps, chills. Love it. Why? Because that's my pleasure.